Yeah. I love the energy that's coming from LV. It's just changed everything. So I'm so much busier. I'm working on much cooler stuff and doing cooler things. I'm working on this one on models and stuff. So
Everyone ready?
Really old Paris models.
So we see more of that kind of that?
Yeah, we were just seeing so
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last of the MJSA Journal live events today. My name is Rich Youmans. I'm the publisher of MJSA Journal. And this one, given it's the last one in the afternoon, appropriately titled Time to Recharge, 60 Ideas in 60 Minutes. And what you're going to get is exactly what it sounds like. We have 9 experts up here, people who have great ideas in business, and it's the technical side of it. And this is going to be a whirlwind round robin. They're just going to keep going, giving out ideas one after the other. And the only catch is each one has 60 seconds. If you go over 60 seconds, you hear that. So before we start, I'd just like to introduce everyone. We'll start with Andrea Hill, who has been...
I wasn't sure if you were making the introduce, but you're going, right?
I'm going to introduce you, yes, because anyone who's been here today before has seen Andrea throughout the session. She actually helped coordinate this whole talk today, so she deserves thanks for that as well. So Andrea, she's the president of Hill Management Group and its 3 brands, StrategyWerx, Works Marketing, and MentorWorks. Next to Andrea, Lee Krombholz. Lee is the president of Krombholz Jewelers in Cincinnati, which specializes in custom design. Next to Lee, we have Christina Miller. Christina is the founder of Christina T Miller Sustainable Jewelry Consulting, which helps jewelers implement responsible and sustainable business strategies and practices. Next to Christina is Arnold. Ann is the Chief Strategy Officer of the Buyers Intelligence Group, which helps jewelers more efficiently manage inventory and communication through data analysis. Next to Ann is David Cochran. David is the President of Manufacturing Jewelers and Suppliers of America, MJSA. Next to David is Michael Binnion. Michael is Casting Process Development and New Technology Manager for Tiffany Company's Forest Hill Manufacturing Facility in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Next to Michael, and Cahoon. And is a designer goldsmith as well as head of the jewelry department at North Bennet Street School in Boston. And next to Ann, we have Kate Peterson. Kate is the president and CEO of Performance Concepts, which provides consulting services for both retailers and suppliers. So, since we have 60 minutes, we don't want to waste any time. So with that, Andrew, it's on and you're being timed.
Yeah, he's been very threatening with this mic horn already. Look, I'm out of time. Okay, my first tip is that to be in business, you really must define your strategic essence. If you don't know who you are, what you do that makes you different, and why you matter, then you cannot be competitive, because those 3 questions are the heart of strategy. They're the heart of differentiation and competitive advantage. If you do not figure out who you are, what you do that makes you matter, and what you do that makes you different and why you matter, then the only thing you'll have left to compete on is price. And that's not any fun at all. So you don't need all the customers, you just need the right ones. Answer those 3 questions.
My first idea is I'm a retail jeweler, and I'm a 3rd generation retail jeweler. And the tradition of our family was to work hard and to be open hours for everyone. And so we were open 6 days a week, and long 10 to 6 o'clock every day. And we had some personal health issues in our family, and we were forced to actually have more limited hours, and our business grew. And I sort of was so contrary to what I believed that I just couldn't believe it, and we've continued now. So our retail store is open 24 hours a week, and we're actually there longer than that, but we just have those open hours, and the rest of the time we spend doing work, uninterrupted. So it's really just, for me, has worked really well.
Well,
Jewelry connects the world through all of the materials that we use. They come from everywhere. And because of this, it provides a really good opportunity to see your business not only as a way to make money, but see your business as a way to profit and also make a difference. If you consider all the different points where your business extends into the world of opportunities to have an impact, suddenly you can shift your thinking a bit from the day-to-day need for those positive transactions to what can that transaction actually ripple out into the world and have an impact on.
So you should review your financials monthly. I know a lot of people hate doing the numbers, but you should really be looking at your cash flow and making sure you can cover any short-term cash needs you have. Review your year-over-year numbers and pay attention to your expenses. For instance, if something's way off from last year, maybe you forgot to pay an insurance bill, or if your gross profit is really off, start trying to figure out, are you tracking your inventory properly? Did your freight expense increase suddenly and you don't know why? Did your sales go down or up but your direct labor didn't? Do you really need to have as many people working for you? Do you need to hire more? Take the time every month to look at your financials and get a handle on your cash flow and your expense management.
My favorite is start with the end in mind. Know what you want the outcome to be and work backward from there to figure out the best path for accomplishing it. Keep this goal top of mind and you'll prevent a lot of counterproductive zigzagging.
All right, as a factory guy, I'm obsessed with repeatability and consistency. So one of the things when mixing investment, everyone starts out using little cups, measuring things. Weigh your materials, use a scale, be consistent, weigh your water, weigh your powder, and it will change your investing in just ways you won't, the consistency, repeatability. It makes your life so much easier and so much better for the investor.
All right, so for anyone who's been trapped inside with COVID, this is one that we all need to remember, pee before you leave. Okay, not really. Know your materials. This one is really, really, really important. For instance, you need to know the Mohs hardness of the gemstones you're working with. You also need to know the Mohs hardness of the compounds that you're working with so you don't destroy those gemstones. You need to understand the mechanical properties of the alloys that you're working with. So often, especially in this day and age of customization, what the customer wants is king, but we have to know how to engineer those systems. So know your materials.
All right, now I don't know anything about investments or any of that stuff. However, I can tell you that in times of crisis, human behavior changes. And the longer the crisis goes on, the more ingrained those behavioral changes become. So for any one of you out there who are still waiting for things to get back to normal, I got a news flash for you. This is it. All right, our behaviors have changed, and they have changed permanently. Behaviors of employees, behaviors of customers, for all of us. And that's a good thing in many, many ways. We've learned different things, we value different things, things are different and important to us in different ways. So the most successful businesses going forward are going to be those who understand that change is the only thing that really is constant, and it continues to evolve. You know, the most important interview question you can ask right now, regardless of what arm of the business you're in, how are you different than you were 2 years ago? And listen to what people tell you. That's a critical question. What have they done for 2 years? What have they learned?
My next tip is, if you don't have one already, create an advisory board for your business. Your business is never too small. In fact, the smaller you are, sometimes the more important this is. You need a group of people around you who represent different skill sets, different types of accomplishment and experience from different industries that will tell you the unblemished truth. You may not want to adopt everything they tell you, but everything they tell you may not be appropriate. But by gathering a group of people who are committed to being your advisory board, you will get the kind of external input that you need to make the right decisions for your business. And it doesn't have to be a paid board, though a paid board's a great thing. You know, buy them dinner once a quarter and get them all together. He wants to honk at me. But gather the people around you to help you grow and be better.
I can't believe we haven't been honked at yet. Again, based on being a traditional family retail jewelers, one of the things we never did is to ask for appointments. So not only are we only open 24 hours a week, we only have one day a week that's open to the public without appointments, and all the rest of the time we actually request appointments. And really what it's done is it's actually when somebody calls for an appointment, we prepare in advance for what they're coming for. And often we can be much more efficient with our time. The client is much happier because we don't have to make 2 or 3 visits because we prepared before they came. And again, we've been just more successful because of both less hours and the appointments.
Because the world of responsible sourcing and sustainability is vast. It touches on your energy consumption, it touches on your overall environment, it touches on how your employees come and go from work, it touches on your materials and where they come from. Because this is so diverse, it's really important to take time to figure out what it is that you care about the most and where your biggest impact is relative to sustainability topics. So in the jewelry industry, that very much has to do with where your precious metals come from. That's one of our biggest environmental and social footprints are as an industry. And so as you start to dig into that information and you learn more, understanding your own priorities and your own concerns helps you lay out a roadmap for where to go so you don't get overwhelmed.
Manage your inventory. So if you don't, you should do a physical inventory at least monthly. Make sure your numbers tie out and there's nothing missing. If you're a manufacturer, look at your components and make sure you're properly stocked. Make sure you talk to your suppliers. There's a lot of disruption in the supply chains right now, and you want to make sure that you have enough for the short term to manage all your needs. If you are a retailer, are you reordering your fast sellers? But more importantly, are you working collaboratively with your vendors so that they have the right product on their shelf to be able to match your needs and understand who the consumer is?
Differentiate between your wants and your needs. Debt is not your friend, nor often is your bank. Be careful when spending money you don't have. Be resourceful, use it up, wear it out, or do without.
Consistent water quality is another key to investing success. Consistent water temperature, it's not really important. Well, it's important the temperature, but hitting the same one every day is more important than having the ideal temperature. Just having the same temperature every day. So this can be achieved easily with a mixing valve or simply filling buckets of water and setting them out the day before. When you get ready to leave, you set out the water you're going to need for the next day. You could even go as far as mixing your binder acid into it. But this allows it to sit. It becomes stable with the temperature in the room. And then every day you're doing the same thing. Your water temperature is the same. So that's consistent water quality. pH is another thing that's very important about water when mixing investment. But changing the pH really isn't worth the effort. It's better to just know what the pH of your water is and always just have the same thing, so that way you have a consistent thing. When you start to change it, got the first horn.
All right, so I'm going to carry on with my first tip because I didn't want to get the horn the first time around. So I told you to know your materials, and along with that is knowing where to find good data. So we all live in the internet age, and the internet is a great place to buy shoes and find movie times, but it's not necessarily a great place for data. So a couple of places where I can steer you to find that really good information. First, your SDS. If you don't have them, you should. An SDS is a safety data sheet. One of the best things about these safety data sheets is when you're trying to figure out, say, what the Mohs hardness of that compound is, you find the particle in the SDS. You have to have that information. So that's a really great source of technical information. If you insist on going on the internet, MatWeb and PubChem are two really great resources. Two other avenues that I'd steer you down. First, if you don't have one, find a mentor. Even better, find two. And finally, read a Santa Fe Symposium paper. There is an absolute wealth of knowledge.
I love going after these manufacturing folks because, like, I know Youmans and I don't know any of that stuff. So speaking of consistency, and I'll thank Michael for that, people will remain loyal, whether they're customers or employees, to a level of consistency. Right? Everyone, I see a lot of retailers now running around trying to build loyalty programs for their customers to keep them in. Well, the fact of the matter is that what's going to keep customers is consistency in performance. And what's going to keep good employees is consistency in leadership. Predictability is far more important. If you belong to an airline loyalty program or a hotel loyalty program, you stay with that program less for the points and more for the predictability. You know what's going to happen to you when you check in or when you get there. So keep that in mind, and consistency in performance is achieved through effective leadership across the board.
Oh, it's back to me, isn't it? Okay, don't let your salespeople be the only people talking to your customers. I advise everyone, no matter what role you're playing in your company, to try to talk to 3 customers every single week. This isn't a sales call. It's not a follow-up. It's a, hey, how's it going? I just wanted to get in touch with you and see what's going on. And, you know, if you can be of assistance to them, great. But mostly you want to know what's going on in their business, what's going on in their world, what they're experiencing. If you lose touch with the customer, you can't provide leadership to your organization. So talk to your customers, shoot for 3 a week.
My personal motto has always been do less better. Again, coming from a traditional retail jewelry background, a jewelry store used to be, you did everything. You were a watchmaker, you could be a clockmaker, you were a bench jeweler, you were an engraver, you did sales, you did accounting, you did marketing. What I realized is that truly you can't do all of those really well. So I always create a goal that I'm going to be the world's best at something. And even if you don't achieve the world's best, you're going to be darn good at something that'll actually do much better for the business. So do less better.
Be the best in the world. So next on my list was really to check your assumptions and biases on a regular basis. So we're in an era and a time in the world where it's really important to understand the people around you, how they might be feeling in a particular moment, what experiences they might be having, what history they're bringing into your store, what history they're bringing into their supplying you with materials like gemstones or gold, etc. And so by checking your biases and assumptions, you're going to be able to get past preconceptions that you might have, even in terms of who's a good business partner, because you might have an idea of what that person might look like or where they come from or how they dress, because this is the world that we're used to. But a really good business partner might be coming from the other side of the world and look completely different than you do. I know the industry is very diverse here, but a lot of this has to do with addressing deep divisions within our society.
Use data. Doesn't matter if you're a vendor or a retailer, understanding the numbers and sell-through. Most of the time, we're really concerned as manufacturers and vendors of sell-in. However, that really doesn't make a difference, because if the consumer's not buying the product, it doesn't matter. So make sure you understand categories and price points. Make sure if you're a retailer that you also understand who the consumer is that's walking into your store. What are they buying? Make sure that you share that information. The days of a vendor walking in with a suitcase, a smile, and a donut, it's not anymore around. So just make sure you're using that data.
Another favorite, I call my 5% rule. In my experience, most companies can reduce expenses, purchasing costs, and inventory by 5% and increase prices by 5%. And if you're able to do that, watch what it does to your bottom line. It's amazing.
When casting large flasks, particularly gold and silver flasks with rubber bases, those bases tend to slip off. So using a hose clamp around the bottom of the base and to clamp the rubber base onto the flask prevents horrible disasters that only people who have done it sort of understand, as all the patterns drop out of the flask and onto your shoes. But the hose clamp's a great thing. The first time I saw it, I thought it was crazy. But then we got a little nut driver, and it's fast, and we do it on every flask, and it saves the day quite often. So
All right, this one's for both the manufacturers and the bench jewelers out there. Finishing starts with the marks you don't make. All right, so that means a bunch of things. Good models, as you're handling work, thoughtful fixturing. As particularly you're finishing and setting, use the right tool. Don't just use the tool that's at hand. Be selective about your aggressive grits and your aggressive tools. You don't need to use everything on every surface. And remember, let's go back to talking about knowing your materials. Your materials choices are going to drive your compound choices and your tool choices. So data-driven decisions, as everyone has been mentioning up here.
All right, so I'm going to take this one into two different directions. I'll start with retail at first. To keep in mind that consumers today, luxury consumers in particular, do extensive research. They're far more savvy than ever before, which essentially means that statistically up to 90% of them do extensive online research before they walk into a place of business or before they choose to make a purchase decision. The important thing to know about that is that by the time they walk in, you've been pre-selected. They are there to buy, not to look, regardless of what they say. So kind of keep that frame of mind. People are there to buy. With regard to manufacturers, designers, those of you who sell to retailers, wholesalers of any kind, keep in mind that these folks research as well, only they research a little differently. If you're not paying attention to online forums and online Facebook groups and things like that for the industry, you may very well be missing not only opportunities, but missing a lot of what people are saying about you. So get out there and be aware of the fact that everyone is researching. And when they come to you, they've already heard about you from somewhere.
This one sort of goes along with what Kate was saying, the last one, which is about consistency. If you want to be consistent, you need to know what your values are as a company. And this tip is around finding out if you're walking your talk. So ask all of your employees and anyone who provides goods and services to your company what they think your company values are. Compile those results and then ask yourself, are these consistent with what I think my company's values are? And do I like the feedback that I got back about it? Because if you don't know your values, then you can't convey them. And even if you do know them and you're not conveying them in everything you do, from marketing to production to customer service and everything in between, if you're not conveying those values, then they're not working for you. And you need that consistency of the values are what give you the groundwork for your consistency.
This one relates to a retail jeweler's website. I think it's important that you don't try to just have a range of things that maybe your stores carry, but aren't unique to your store. So we spend our website, the only things that we have on our website are the things that we make in our store or the things that we believe are unique to our store, so that when people are searching online, they're more apt to find that what we have is different from what they're seeing other places. And another way to actually state that is that I can't tell you how many times we have people that come to our store because we are a designer, and they say, I really want something different, I want something unique, and then they say they want a solitaire. So if you show what you're unique at, and even if they want a solitaire, they're going to still come. So just to promote what you're unique at.
So on the responsible sourcing sustainability journey, you have to jump in where you are in the moment. If you try to take it all on at once, you'll feel overwhelmed and you're going to feel like you're not making a dent or making a difference or making an impression. So the idea of continuous improvement rings true in this practice so strongly, because it not only relates to the way that you do it and you engage in it, but it also extends to the expectations we have of miners, for example, on the other side of the world, that they too are on a process of continuous improvement, fixing the way that they're doing their mining activity. So be kind to yourself. Every step that you take makes a difference.
Use technology, especially in this day of remote working and multiple locations, and to help improve your communications. Two different websites. One is slack.com. It's an instant messaging system, and it's going to cut your email time back and forth that you send tons of emails. It gives the ability to create lots of different channels that can be both public and private within your organization. And it allows different groups and departments to work collaboratively together, even if they're not in the same location. You can even have like a contest fund channel that we do like around the holidays to make things fun and engaging with your employees. And Monday.com is another online tool to help you manage your workplace flow and your workflow. It works great when the teams are remote. You can put all different tasks in there, assign them to everyone, prioritize them, and everyone can see where everybody else is when they're working on different projects.
Keep an updated list of your biggest fears and risks, what keeps you up at night, and update it as needed. Try to have a plan B for each risk.
This is an idea that's sort of been with me for a while, and it's sort of based on Bruce Mao, who's a 21st century designer and writer. And it's about basically you want to harvest ideas and edit applications. That ideas need like a rich environment to grow in and to think about. So you want to really encourage ideas, but applications need rigor, and you need to like really look at them before you start to create an application. So harvest ideas, edit applications.
My next bullet point segues really well into that. It just says garbage in, garbage out. So this is coming back to data-driven processes. Really emphasizing, my thought here is to emphasize the idea of finding solutions earlier in a process rather than later in a process. Whether it's something that seems to be simple and concise and short, or something maybe a little longer and a little more involved, the sooner you have a solution, the better your product is going to be. And did I mention knowing your materials? That helps too.
Right. You kind of need to make sure, regardless of what element of the industry you're in, that your staff and the people selling your product know more about your product than your customer, or at least as much. Let's start with that. Again, you know, regardless of what it is that you're selling or what people are buying, they're doing homework and they're researching. The minute you illustrate quite clearly that you or someone on your team knows less about the product than the consumer perceives that they do, you pretty much give up your right to sell them anything. And that applies to whether you carry a particular product or not at retail. You know, if someone asks for something that you don't carry, but that's been in the news or in fashion or something along those lines, and the people behind the counter don't know anything about it, you've pretty much given up your ticket to selling them anything that you do have.
A lot of times when we find a lot of times people will not call a consultant into their business until they're in so much pain they just can't stand it, and that's when they ask for help. Don't wait that long, by the way. Go back and get your advisory board together. But when we go into a company and find out they're really struggling, it's almost always because they're not focusing on prospecting. Their selling pool has gotten smaller and smaller, and they don't have anyone else to sell more to. So the tip is, figure out 3 distinct methods of prospecting, and always be using at least 3 distinct methods of finding new customers for your business, whether you're wholesale or retail. If you're not focusing on prospecting, you won't be selling.
My next tip is to have a coffee station in your retail stores. You know, in relative terms, we're in the hospitality business as a retail jeweler. And it's a great way to have an icebreaker when the person comes in, is to offer them a cup of coffee or a bottle of water. The funny part of what has happened with that, we have a single serving coffee maker, no brand name mentioned. We have several customers that just started coming in on like this regular basis, and you know, the first thing they would do is go over to the coffee maker, make a cup of coffee, and then they would start wandering in our store. And we, you know, would ask, you know, we'd talk to them and they'd say, you know, this is my happy place. This is where I come for a cup of coffee and just to look at shiny things, and it just makes me so happy. And we also then turned our coffee station into a fundraiser. We put a little box for a animal shelter. And
So from the point of view of a jeweler, when you're in conversations with suppliers, and this is for supplier ears too, it's important to have deep conversations asking about where the materials are coming from, how they're reaching you, how do you know that that's the truth? What are the ways that the supplier uses to verify the truth with you? We know, I don't even have to mention current events. You all know what I'm talking about, how important that is in this moment of time. But it's also important to invite suppliers into the conversation. So sometimes the designer or the retailer is in that line of fire with the consumer needing to answer these really difficult questions. And the supplier might want to participate, but they haven't been asked in a way that is inviting and inclusive.
So get a pulse on how your employees are feeling using tinypulse.com. This company sends out one question per week to your employees, and it gives a gauge on their morale. Because a lot of times if you send out surveys, they're not going to take the time to fill out an entire survey, but one question a week they will do. And they give you honest feedback. It's all anonymous, and it gives you an idea of how the employees are feeling at that moment. Do you foster an environment that encourages the employees to make suggestions? You provide constructive feedback? So it's a great way to really get a pulse on how your employees are doing, especially this important day of retaining the best that you have.
Remember that price is not the all-important determinant in making a sale. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. Customers view quality, value, and personal attention as more important than price.
It's difficult to get in the habit of giving feedback. So I found with my team that we actually schedule now every week a session for giving and receiving feedback, and we use a timer to make sure that it's balanced to giving and receiving, because sometimes it gets unbalanced. So the timer is very helpful, and scheduling it has made a big difference. Just creating a time for that to happen, because it's it's tough to do. So make it, schedule it, put it on your calendar.
Where am I here? Embrace more than one way to do things and encourage individual problem solving. Anyone who knows the way I was trained might be a little bit surprised to hear this, but I believe that it's true. Even if you work alone, seek alternatives to what you normally do and try something new on a regular basis, whether you're sitting at the bench, whether it's a business practice. This approach keeps energy up, confidence high, and it helps to build overall a more supportive environment.
For anyone who has people around you that need to know what they're talking about, keep in mind that education and training today is not, underline not, what most of us grew up with. Anybody remembers being handed a giant book and being told, here, go read this, and you're going to know everything you need to know by the time you're done? Well, it doesn't really work anymore. In the day and age where we're trying to hire people that are just coming into the workforce, a 20-something digital native is going to get absolutely nothing out of that exercise. But books are still important, but you have to have tools available that speak to people and from which they can learn. And learning varies tremendously from person to person. Paying attention to how they learn becomes every bit as important. Keep in mind that there are plenty of resources available, that online courses and things of that nature now that weren't before. And the more you can provide for your team, the better it's going to be for you and for your consumers.
It's very tempting to believe that our customers are like us, and therefore the things that we like and don't like or want and don't want are what our customers like and want or don't like or don't want. And that couldn't be further from the truth. But most business decision making falls by default to, well, my preferences are what we're going to do because I think they're my customers' preferences. There's a method that you can use to get around that. It's called the customer journey process. You can look it up. By doing this method, you have these aha moments about what would work for the customers or better ways to reach your customers that you would not have had without it. So I encourage every business to create the customer journeys for the types of customers that they have and do more from your customer's perspective.
My next tip relates to bench jewelers. Experiment with different metal finishes. I find that even if you have, so we produce a line of jewelry in our store that we actually make. And we can have a design that we've been doing for 10 years. And just by changing a metal finish, it makes it new and fresh and different. And we actually try to have different styles. We'll have the same style as something. We'll put different metal finishes on it to show the client all the possibilities they have. And it's just great because it really does give that client something to choose from and a way to put their own fingerprint on the design. So metal finishes experiment.
So you might have heard the terms greenwashing, maybe you've heard ethics washing, maybe you've heard whitewashing. All of these describe ways of kind of making something seem better than it actually is. And often it's done completely in an unintentional way. You know, we're just trying to communicate about something that we're working on, something that we're doing. But you have to be really careful because these terms mean a lot to consumers. And if we're not all using them accurately and using them in a way that is similar to each other, we run the risk of smoothing it out so much that nobody knows what we're talking about anymore, and we can't actually prove the difference that we're making.
So review your employee benefits to improve retention. This day and age with labor shortages and the struggle to find skilled workers, it's a real problem. Do you have a 401k? Do you have a company match? Did you set up a health savings account or an HSA? Do you work with a payroll company like ADP and look into their HR benefits? A lot of times they have packages where your employees can get discounts for regular things that you would never think about. Do you have employees that work remotely or from home? Do you schedule Zooms around the holidays to make sure everyone feels engaged and do a Zoom holiday party with a Cahoon or something? Do things to keep people feeling engaged and make sure their employee benefits are up to par.
Invest in your colleagues. Success often comes back to people. Cultivate, groom, train, motivate, and reward. The most important investment is often in yourself. Stay current and make continuous learning a top priority.
This one goes to knowing your materials. Write the quench time of the different as you make a casting with each different metal way, whether it's rose gold, silver, all of them have different quench times. So an easy way to track it is to write it with a pencil on top of the flask. And a normal pencil will write on a hot flask. We like the big Chief jumbo pencils because they're easy to use with gloves on, and they're kind of, I don't know, we like them.
I'm going to get a little more philosophical finally. Don't keep secrets. It's absolutely fine to protect your brand or your store or your organization and the knowledge that you've worked really hard for. But please remember what it was like to start out on your path and share with the folks who are the future of our shared industry. And if you can't bring yourself to share outside of your organization, start by sharing internally.
One of the most important things I think for a business owner today, regardless again of where you are in the industry, is to know and manage your online reputation. You know, we all know how important it is to watch those Google reviews and those 5 stars and to make sure that you get all that. Well, you have to do that as an employer as well. Know your online reputation as an employer. Watch Indeed, watch Glassdoor, know what former employees are saying about you, know what current employees are saying about you. It's amazing to me how many people don't even know that stuff exists. And if you run an ad and all of a sudden aren't getting any applicants and you're wondering why, take a look and see what your review page says and make sure that what's there is either accurate or that you've responded to it in some way.
Business owners with banking relationships fare better than business owners without. And if you're thinking, I'm a business of one, this includes you. Call your bank. I can't believe how many people don't even know who a bank contact is at their bank. If you own a business, you need a banking relationship. Call your bank, ask for the business banking person and say, I'd like to come in and talk to you about whatever opportunities are out there. If they're not interested in setting up an appointment with you, find a new bank. You will need those banking relationships in time. It's really important to set them up, not just the banking account, but the banking relationship.
This relates to our retail store. Don't be afraid to try a different complementary co-business. During COVID, my wife was a little bit kind of falling out of love with being in the retail jewelry world, and she always loves needlepoint. And I don't know if anybody needlepoints here, but it's not a cheap thing to do. You know, you buy a needlepoint canvas, you spend all the time stitching it, and then you have to have it finished. So the people that do needlepoint tend to be upper end people. So we've had great success in the last year of bringing new clients to our jewelry store by having a needlepoint store within our jewelry store.
Along the same theme as I was talking before, words matter. So, and they mean different things to different people. So when you're using terminology like sustainable or ethical or recycled or eco, you have to take the time to really explain, no matter where you are in the supply chain, what you mean. Even if you're relying on existing certifications to verify your claim that your material is recycled, you have to be able to explain what that certification stands for and what it means. So when we throw around terms like sustainable and ethical, it's important to back it up.
Try Fiverr.com. It's an online freelance marketplace. So if you're looking to have anything from designing business cards to help with your HTML or JavaScript to meeting a graphic designer or creating a video for social media or WordPress and so much more, this marketplace allows you to find people at very reasonable rates. Many of them are overseas, and each freelancer has a rating and reviews of their work. So before you hire anyone, you could read their reviews and look at their rating to see what other people have said. And it's a great option for small projects when you don't have a very big budget.
Know the significant difference between being the decision maker and being a leader, and strive to be a leader.
Trust your suppliers' technical advice. Most of the suppliers that are in our industry have great application engineering teams and technicians that can help you solve your problems. I don't know how many things I've learned by just getting on the phone and talking to an application engineer at an investment company or even a steel supplier, just anything. It's some of the more interesting conversations I've had, just reaching out to the people who are working with the materials you use and manufacturing those materials. They have an insight, and they're often willing to share everything that can help you be successful with their product. So that's something that's helped me through the years.
I think Rich stacked the deck here. So my next suggestion is to regularly assess your supplier alliances. And this is something that I believed in even before things got as dynamic as they have over the last couple of years. And what I want folks to maybe think about focusing on is that a supplier alliance is about more than cost. It can also be about turnaround time, reliability, consistency, terms, ease of doing business, the quality of the service that they provide, perhaps outside of the object or the widget. And as you're thinking about your supplier alliances, consider whether or not you might also need redundancy. I think a lot of us have run into some hiccups recently.
If you hope to attract the best and the brightest of people to work with you, regardless of the jobs that you have available, you have to be prepared to offer things that are competitive. And as scary as it is to think about being competitive in our marketplace today, things like a path to growth, a path to development are very, very important to employees coming into the workplace today. You may not be a company that offers a corporate ladder that keeps climbing up in different positions, but what you can offer is an opportunity for someone who really loves what they do to perfect their craft without feeling like they have to move to a new position. For example, whoever decided that sales to management is a promotion should probably be shot, because it's not. It's a totally different job. That's like saying you're a great carpenter, so now you're a plumber, and that's a promotion. Keep your paths to growth sensible, but value people for what they bring in each position that you have.
Once a year, have a
Start the clock again.
We did 60.
Huh?
We did 8 rounds. It goes fast.
Did fast.
Yeah, I think it.
Are we out of time?
Oh, we have more
No,
time.
so
We have one more. Well, we have 15 minutes left. I think we did.
I've got more.
You want one more round?
But before we do it, let's went to. Yeah, we did 60. Let's went to see if the audience. It's not very often you get this type of brain power. if anyone has any questions they'd like to pose to our audience before we go into it, and then we can have one final round of tips, because I know you all have more than what you did. So does anyone have any questions? No?
You're afraid he'll honk at you, aren't you?
With that, then, one more round.
Okay, I'm a little gun shy now. All right. Once a year, have a brainstorming about 100 ways you could grow your business. The only rule in a brainstorming is that there are no bad ideas. So bring in lunch, bring in some trusted peers or your advisory board if you don't have other people to do this with, and just start letting the ideas flow. Some of them will be wacky, some of them will be unworkable, doesn't matter. Push, push, push to 100 ways that you could grow your business, and at the end, you will actually have some great ideas to start working on.
I'm a CAD designer for our retail store, and I have found that it's important not to get in a rut of just using the tools and plugins that you're used to. It's really beneficial and helpful to continue to learn in CAD programs because they continue to evolve and improve. And actually, I think MJSA is going to do an article in the next journal maybe or soon about plugins to CAD programs. So continue to learn CAD software.
Something that's really accessible to smaller businesses is sourcing materials from what's called artisanal and small scale mining communities. This can be in gold, this can be in gemstones, this can be in silver, and it's coming for diamonds. By supporting artisanal and small scale miners, you can know exactly where your materials come from, and you can have a relationship with the people on the ground. In that process, it's really important to keep track of those relationships, understand the impact that you're having, cultivate relationships, often with the nonprofits or the NGOs that are working with those mining communities. It helps open your eyes to the world of impact that you can have.
So I have to say, years ago, I got a great tip that I still live by from Andrea. And so I have to give her credit for this one. It's the implement the 2-minute rule and live by it. So when you come in the morning, when you're presented with a task, if you can complete that task in less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. If not, put it off to the side, get through everything. So when you come in, especially on a Monday morning, your inbox is completely full, go through every email. If you can answer that email in less than 2 minutes, do it. If not, put it off to the side. And the other thing I just want to say is, remember to smile when you answer the phone. People can hear your smile. Get your staff trained to do it. You do it, and you're going to see the results immediately.
A couple of favorite pieces of advice, paraphrased from America's best investor, Warren Buffett. Take a long-range view and build for the future. Someone's sitting in the shade because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And it's often better to buy a wonderful piece at a fair price than a fair piece at a wonderful price.
Iterate quickly if possible. Try multiple sprue layouts, shrinkage offsets on the same tree. This is easiest, of course, with printed patterns or wax. Choose the best, remelt the rest. A great casting that requires less repair and less pinch work is worth the refining charge and the effort to clean and reuse the metal.
I like this one so much, I own the t-shirt. Run a tight shipwreck. Hold yourself and your team to high standards, holding space for the moments when we all inevitably need to be human beings. Consider giving people time to step back and regroup instead of promoting or maintaining this sort of stoic power through culture. I have learned in the last couple of years that humanity, kindness, and perspective do a hell of a lot more for productivity than a lot of people acknowledge.
Absolutely. And along the same lines, remember that people in the workplace today are more focused on balance than most of us were ever learned to be. And it's really important that you recognize that. And from a business owner standpoint, keep in mind that the more you focus on what you can do for people and the less you focus on what you can't, the further along you're going to get. In other words, you know, if Sonic is offering $24 an hour to flip burgers, and you're standing there wondering how you're going to hire people in a market where they can get $24 to flip a burger, you have to start thinking about what you can do. All right, it may not be sustainable to think about paying high hourly rates, but can you craft a compensation plan that involves incentives that allow people to earn what makes sense for the position that they're in? Look for benefits that make sense. If you can't afford to, as a small business to do healthcare benefits, look for a healthcare allowance, and then get creative about how you structure time. Can you offer a babysitter for the after-school hours for 2 hours a day if you have 3 employees that have little kids? I mean, what are the things that you can do that make sense? Pet insurance, you know, what can you offer? Look for ways to offer things that are creative and innovative that set you apart as an employer from everyone else.
Still have a little bit of time. One more round? Tips?
What is my next idea? Oh, we're counting. Create a professional growth plan for yourself, just like you would for every employee that you've got. Everyone should have a professional growth plan. If you haven't made one for yourself, then you're missing out on something really important, a gift to yourself. Go back to school, go take a class, make a list of things that you would like to be better at and start chipping away at it. But everyone in any level of any business should have a professional growth plan for themselves up until the day you kick the bucket, not just until you retire.
Back to retail jewelry, don't be afraid of buying bulk chain. So chain in spools of like 50 feet at a time, and there's great suppliers here at MJSA to do this. What we did is we started out with very basic cable chain, but it's really amazing how much less expensive it is and how easy it is to put together chains in any length. And we've grown that collection now. We probably have about 10 different patterns of chain, mostly pendant chain. It's an initial investment, but it's well worth the investment.
I'm going to toss out a few names as a final tip. It's not something that I had on my list, but take note: Fairmind, Fair Trade, Moyo Gems, Everledger, blockchain. These are the kinds of terms of information that are going to be absolutely essential going forward, including next week.
Cleaner Gold Network,
Cleaner
which
Gold Network.
Christina runs.
Ethical Metalsmiths.
Chicago Responsible Jewelry Conference. There are ways to learn to be more responsible.
Organize your email inbox. Create folders and file emails away once you've responded to them, or you don't have to look at them anymore. Try to keep your inbox as light as possible, so that the only emails in your inbox are the ones that you still have to respond to, or the ones that you're waiting on somebody to respond to you. If you have to follow up with someone, calendar that. Put it into your calendar that you have to respond to somebody on a certain day, and then file that email. It makes it so much easier because you'll always know where to look for your emails when you're looking for something, and it's not just all sitting in one huge thing, and it takes some of that anxiety and stress out of all the emails that are there. The first time that you do it is going to take a while if you've never done it, but I promise you, once you do it and you get in the habit, it's so much easier.
Seek to build strong and lasting relationships. And remember, people deal with people they like, respect, and trust. Inject humor into your dealings. It relaxes people and humanizes yourself.
Dry your platinum flasks on blotter paper rather than investment powder. Highly absorbent paper is an excellent way to dehydrate these flasks. We all learned how to do it with beds of platinum investment powder. You use powder. There's powder everywhere. It's respirable silica. It's a terrible thing to breathe. So by switching to paper, we've taken a room that used to be a no-go zone and made it into an area you don't even need a respirator to wear, to work in. We still wear them, but you don't need one. It's not required by OSHA. So simply using blotter paper rather than investment powder, and it was a huge change. And now it also gives us incredibly consistent drying times. So each batch, we write the time down and we control that exact drying time into the ovens.
All right, back on brand. Establish and maintain a maintenance schedule. You want to be proactive than reactive when it comes to your equipment. Consider having reasonable redundancy for any high-use, high-need systems. And ask yourself whether or not your team has the skills to replace technology in a pinch, and if they don't, should they?
Everyone's looking for great people and wants great people around them, but here's the thing. There's no such thing as great people unless you are great for them. The best people demand the best leaders, and it's critically important to be that leader and to be terribly effective at being a leader. If you have a team and you manage a team, the key rule of thumb is you should only do what only you can do, and trust the people that work with you to do the rest. That puts you in a position of being the very best you can be at what you do for them and being the best you can be at being a leader.
That's it. What's that? That's it. This has been 60 plus, so a big hand for our panelists. They did a great job. And one final, of approval. It was a lot to absorb today. If anyone, we're going to have all this on a PDF, a little presentation. If anyone would like it, give me your business card. I'll send it out to you. It's also been recorded. It's going to be on our website. So if anything you missed, anything you want to revisit, go to mjsa.org. You'll be able to see it. Thanks very much for attending.
Just a note for our social media audiences, we will be live casting all day tomorrow, 3 different sessions. So if you haven't seen the alerts on the MJSA website or on MJSA social media channels already, set yourself up for alerts and join us tomorrow.